Good evening, everyone. The weekend is upon us yet again, and you know what that means. It's time for a good drink. So, yeah, I'd be happy if you'd join me. Come along for the ride, or the drink. But bring what you got. Don't feel obligated to drink anything you don't want to drink, or, honestly, don't feel obligated to drink at all, right? Just, as long as we're hanging out, having a good time, that's what counts. So, I brought the old American Amber Ale, which is quite delicious, if I do say so myself. It's nice. So, anyway, without further ado, cheers to you, and Jesus too. Frothy, but delicious. Anyway, how are you? How you doing? You doing all right? I hope you're doing all right. Yeah, my week was okay. It was quiet around the office and not a lot of people there, so quite honestly, just between you and me, that allows me to get quite a bit of work done, and there's nobody around, you know. Uh, it's nice, change of pace, and it's always nice to just kind of wind things down for the holidays, you know. End with a whimper. So, yeah, that's about it as far as the week goes. I have chickens. Did I tell you I have chickens? They keep breaking out of their pen, and so I'm building up a bigger pen, and I'm gonna secure it. So that's been a fun little project that I'm working on. Anyway, but enough about me. Let's get to reading. I've been thinking a lot about equality lately. Because the political left, talks a lot about equality and everybody's got to be equal and stuff, which I agree with, but kind of in a different way. Equality means different things to different people. And it kind of reminded me of a book that I had read, short story, a long time ago. Actually, in the sixth grade, my sixth grade teacher, Mrs. Lucas, she had us read this, and it always stuck with me, because it's terrifying. Even in sixth grade, it was kind of a big concept for the class, and me personally to digest, being so young. But it really stuck with me for just how odd and scary it was, and even back then I remember thinking, that couldn't happen here. And, well, I'm watching it happen here. So, strange times we live in. But anyway, I just wanted to share this with you and hopefully get something out of it. And as well as I hope you bring your perspectives to the table, leave some comments, and just kind of share your thoughts. I'd really like it if you would, I love other people's perspectives and unique views on the world and things, so yeah. Anyway, the story is called Harrison Bergeron, and it is by an author named Kurt Vonnegut, or Vonnegut. Sounds German. So, once again, you'll have to forgive me. I don't know any better. I'm just going to say Gut, because it looks really German. But I could be wrong. Let's see. Quite honestly, I don't know too much about this guy, the author and everything. I just know he writes really good short stories. But, Harrison Bergeron, kind of a dystopian short story. And it's not long. It's not too long, so if you're pressed for time, I wouldn't worry too much. But anyway, I'll just jump right into it, and we'll kind of go from there. So, one for the road. Or the story, I should say. All right. Here he goes. Harrison Bergeron. The year was 2081, and everybody was finally equal. They weren't only equal before God and the law, they were equal every which way. Nobody was smarter than anybody else. Nobody was better looking than anybody else. Nobody was stronger or quicker than anybody else. All this equality was due to the 211th, 212th, and 213th Amendments to the Constitution, and to the unceasing vigilance of agents of the United States Handicapper General. Some things about living still weren't quite right, though. April, for instance, still drove people crazy by not being springtime, and it was in that clammy month that the HG men took George and Hazel Bergeron's 14-year-old son, Harrison, away. It was tragic, all right, but George and Hazel couldn't think about it very hard. Hazel had a perfectly average intelligence, which meant she couldn't think about anything except in short bursts. And George, while his intelligence was way above normal, had a little mental handicap radio in his ear. He was required by law to wear it at all times. It was tuned to a government transmitter. Every 20 seconds or so, the transmitter would send out some sharp noise to keep people like George from taking unfair advantage of their brains. George and Hazel were watching television. There were tears on Hazel's cheeks, but she'd forgotten for the moment what they were about. On the television screen were ballerinas. A buzzer sounded in George's head. His thoughts fled in panic, like bandits from a burglar alarm. "That was a real pretty dance, that dance they just did," said Hazel. "Huh?" said George. "That dance, it was nice," said Hazel. "Yup," said George. He tried to think a little about the ballerinas. They weren't really very good. No better than anybody else would have been anyway. They were burdened with sash weights and bags of birdshot, and their faces were masked so that no one, seeing a free and graceful gesture or a pretty face, would feel like something the cat drug in. George was toying with the vague notion that maybe dancers shouldn't be handicapped, but he didn't get very far with it before another noise in his ear radio scattered his thoughts. George winced. So did 2 out of the 8 ballerinas. Hazel saw him wince. Having no mental handicap herself, she had to ask George what the latest sound had been. "Sounded like somebody hitting a milk bottle with a ball-peen hammer," said George. "I'd think it'd be real interesting hearing all the different sounds," said Hazel, a little envious. "All the things they think up." Said George. "Only, if I was Handicapper General, you know what I would do," said Hazel. Hazel, as a matter of fact, bore a strong resemblance to the Handicapper General, a woman named Diana Moon Glampers. "If I was Diana Moon Glampers," said Hazel, "I'd have chimes on Sunday. Just chimes. Kind of in honor of religion." "I could think if it was just chimes," said George. "Well, maybe make 'em real loud," said Hazel. "I think I'd make a good Handicapper General." "Good as anybody else," said George. "Who knows better than I do what normal is?" said Hazel. "Right," said George. He began to think glimmeringly about his abnormal son, who was now in jail, about Harrison, but a 21-gun salute in his head stopped that. "Boy," said Hazel, "that was a doozy, wasn't it?" It was such a doozy that George was white and trembling, and tears stood on the rims of his red eyes. 2 of the 8 ballerinas had collapsed to the studio floor and were holding their temples. "All of a sudden you look so tired," said Hazel. "Why don't you stretch out on the sofa, so's you can rest your handicap bag on the pillows, honey bunch?" She was referring to the 47 pounds of birdshot in a canvas bag, which was padlocked around George's neck. "Go on and rest the bag for a little while," she said. "I don't care if you're not equal to me for a while." George weighed the bag in his hands. "I don't mind it," he said. "I don't notice it any more. It's just a part of me." "You've been so tired lately. Kind of wore out," said Hazel. "If there was just some way we could make a little hole in the bottom of the bag and just take out a few of them lead balls. Just a few." 2 years in prison and $2,000 fine for every ball I took out," said George. "I don't call that a bargain." "If you could just take a few out when you came home from work," said Hazel. "I mean, You don't compete with anybody around here. You just sit around." "If I tried to get away with it," said George, "then other people would get away with it, and pretty soon we'd be right back to the Dark Ages again, with everybody competing against everybody else. You wouldn't like that, would you?" "I'd hate it," said Hazel. "There you are," said George. "The minute people start cheating on laws, what do you think happens to society?" If Hazel hadn't been able to come up with an answer to this question, George couldn't have supplied one. A siren was going off in his head. "Reckon it'd fall apart," said Hazel. "What would?" said George blankly. "Society," said Hazel uncertainly. "Wasn't that what you just said?" "Who knows," said George. The television program was suddenly interrupted for a news bulletin. It wasn't clear at first as to what the bulletin was about, since the announcer, like all announcers, had a serious speech impediment. For about a half a minute, and in a state of high excitement, the announcer tried to say, "Ladies and gentlemen." He finally gave up, handed the bulletin to a ballerina to read. "That's all right," Hazel said of the announcer. "He tried. That's the big thing. He tried to do the best he could with what God gave him. He should get a nice raise for trying so hard." "Ladies and gentlemen," said the ballerina, reading the bulletin. She must have been extraordinarily beautiful, because the mask she wore was hideous, and it was easy to see that she was the strongest and most graceful of all the dancers, for her handicap bags were as big as those worn by 200-pound men. And she had to apologize at once for her voice, which was a very unfair voice for a woman to use. Her voice was a warm, luminous, timeless melody. "Excuse me," she said, and began again, making her voice absolutely uncompetitive. Harrison Bergeron, age 14, she said in a grackle squawk, has just escaped from jail, where he was held on suspicion of plotting to overthrow the government. He is a genius and an athlete, is under-handicapped, and should be regarded as extremely dangerous. A police photograph of Harrison Bergeron was flashed on the screen, upside down, then sideways, upside down again, then right side up. The picture showed the full length of Harrison against a background calibrated in feet and inches. He was exactly 7 feet tall. The rest of Harrison's appearance was Halloween and hardware. Nobody had ever borne heavier handicaps. He had outgrown hindrances faster than the HG men could think them up. Instead of a little ear radio for a mental handicap, he wore a tremendous pair of earphones and spectacles with thick wavy lenses. The spectacles were intended to make him not only half blind, but to give him wanging headaches besides. Scrap metal was hung all over him. Ordinarily, there was a certain symmetry, a military neatness to the handicaps issued to strong people. But Harrison looked like a walking junkyard. In the race of life, Harrison carried 300 pounds. And to offset his good looks, the HG men required that he wear at all times a red rubber ball for a nose, keep his eyebrows shaved off, and cover his even white teeth with black caps at snaggletooth random. "If you see this boy," said the ballerina, "do not, I repeat, do not try to reason with him." There was the shriek of a door being torn from its hinges. Screams and barking cries of consternation came from the television set. The photograph of Harrison Bergeron on the screen jumped again and again, as though dancing to the tune of an earthquake. George Bergeron correctly identified the earthquake, and well he might have, for many was the time his own home had danced to the same crashing tune. "My God," said George, "that must be Harrison." The realization was blasted from his mind instantly by the sound of an automobile collision in his head. When George could open his eyes again, the photograph of Harrison was gone. A living, breathing Harrison filled the screen. Clanking, clownish, and huge, Harrison stood in the center of the studio. The knob of the uprooted studio door was still in his hand. Ballerinas, technicians, musicians, and announcers cowered on their knees before him, expecting to die. "I am the Emperor," cried Harrison. "Do you hear? I am the Emperor. Everybody must do what I say at once." He stamped his foot, and the studio shook. "Even as I stand here," he bellowed, "crippled, hobbled, sickened, I am a greater ruler than any man who ever lived. Now watch me become what I can become. Harrison tore down the straps of his handicap harness like wet tissue paper. Tore straps guaranteed to support 5,000 pounds. Harrison's scrap iron handicaps crashed to the floor. Harrison thrust his thumbs under the bar of the padlock that secured his head harness. The bar snapped like celery. Harrison smashed his headphones and spectacles against the wall. He flung away his rubber ball nose, revealed a man that would have awed Thor, the god of thunder. I shall now select my empress, he said, looking down on the cowering people. Let the first woman who dares rise to her feet claim her mate and her throne. A moment passed, and then a ballerina arose, swaying like a willow. Harrison plucked the mental handicap from her ear, snapped off her physical handicaps with marvelous delicacy. Last of all, he removed her mask. She was blindingly beautiful. Now, said Harrison, taking her hand, shall we show the people the meaning of the word dance? Music, he commanded. The musicians scrambled back into their chairs, and Harrison stripped them of their handicaps too. Play your best, he told them, and I'll make you barons and dukes and earls. The music began. It was normal at first, cheap, silly, false. But Harrison snatched two musicians from their chairs, waved them like batons as he sang the music as he wanted it played. He slammed them back into their chairs. The music began again and was much improved. Harrison and his empress merely listened to the music for a while, listened gravely, as though synchronizing their heartbeats with it. They shifted their weights to their toes. Harrison placed his big hands on the girl's tiny waist, letting her sense the weightlessness that would soon be hers. And then, in an explosion of joy and grace, into the air they sprang. Not only were the laws of the land abandoned, but the laws of gravity and the laws of motion as well. They reeled, whirled, swiveled, flounced, capered, gamboled, and spun. They leapt like deer on the moon. The studio ceiling was 30 feet high, but each leap brought the dancers nearer to it. It became their obvious intention to kiss the ceiling. They kissed it. And then, neutralizing gravity with love and pure will, they remained suspended in air, inches below the ceiling, and they kissed each other for a long, long time. It was then that Diana Moon Glampers, the handicapper general, came into the studio with a double-barreled 10-gauge shotgun. She fired twice, and the Emperor and the Empress were dead before they hit the floor. Diana Moon Glampers loaded the gun again. She aimed it at the musicians and told them that they had 10 seconds to get their handicaps back on. It was then that the Bergeron's television tube burned out. Hazel turned to comment about the blackout to George, but George had gone out into the kitchen for a can of beer. George came back in with the beer, paused while a handicap signal shook him, and then he sat down again. "You been crying?" he said to Hazel. "Yep," she said. "What about?" he said. "I forget," she said. "Something real sad on television." "What was it?" he said. "It's all kind of mixed up in my mind," said Hazel. "Forget sad things," said George. "I always do," said Hazel. "That's my girl," said George. He winced. There was the sound of a riveting gun in his head. "Gee, I could tell that one was a doozy," said Hazel. "You can say that again," said George. "Gee," said Hazel, "I could tell that one was a doozy." The story is fiction, but I think it accurately portrays the human condition. I see a lot of people out there now, normally of a certain political bent, who seem to be basing their realities, their lives around envy and anger and hate and jealousy. And I just want to say that that's not how you move forward as a society. That's not how you build people up. You don't build people up by tearing them down, right? I mean, if I got a car and you have a better car than me and I break your car, Well, that doesn't make my car any better. That just means I still have a crappy car, and now you have no car. You know, or maybe I spray paint an ugly paint on your car or something. Well, now we both have crappy cars, right? When you have a society and a culture based around these things, these horrible emotions, envy, jealousy, disdain for anybody that has talents and things that you don't, you're going to end up in a very dark place. Very dark place. I mean, take money, for example, right? You know, when you base your society around taking from those who have more than you, everybody's going to be worse off. Everybody. And I know you're thinking, oh, that's wrong, you know. Yeah, but the only problem with your argument is there are real world historical examples of what happens when you do that, when you succumb to that mentality. And look no further than the Soviet Union, Russia, China under Mao, Pol Pot, Cambodia, I think it's Cambodia, Cuba, right, under Castro. Look at what happened. It was horrible. People starved. You know, people were murdered, people were unpersoned, right? Disappeared in the middle of, no one knew what happened to them, just gone. You never existed anymore. That's what happens. You know, you start with an idea that sounds nice. It sounds nice. I'm going to take from you and give to you, and it does. It really does. But don't be fooled. It's not right. You know, stealing, I mean, taking without permission is stealing. I'm just going to say it, right? Regardless of what it is. You're not going to move forward as a society if you do that. If you take from those and give to others, right? Yeah. And I don't know how this mentality took over, you know. It's just curious that it wasn't even that long ago, right? Those America stood seemingly alone, you know, against this horrible ideology. And it's coming back now, you know. It's just weird. Very weird. And then, you know, they're trying to say we're all these genders and stuff, right? We can all be equal in body and spirit and mind and everything. No, we can't. I'm not afraid to say that. No, we can't. And we're better off for it. You know that? We're better off because once we're free to succeed on our own merits and our own talents, we're going to move everybody forward, right? You know? And maybe you can't be the strongest or the smartest or anything. That's okay. That's all right. That's the beautiful thing about freedom. You're free to be somebody. We can't all be the best quarterback or the best Olympian, runner, snowboarder, weightlifter, gymnast, right? I mean, the best pilot, right? The best airplane pilot. Can't fly all the planes, right? Can only fly one plane at a time. Somebody's got to fly the planes, right? And when the pilot goes home, somebody has to fix the clogged pipe, or, you know, plumber, you know, or maybe a hot water heater broke and somebody's got to replace that, right? Maybe his car's not running well. Somebody's got to fix his car, right? Why not you? And there's the best car mechanic out there right now. Someone is the best car mechanic. Well, they can't fix every car in America, let alone the world. I mean, goodness, right? They can only fix one or two cars at a time, right? Or a couple, however they want to do it. But my point is, somebody else has to fix cars. They can't do it alone. That's where you come in. That's where I come in, right? We're all special. We all have something. Like me, for example. I mean, I can't think of anything I'm the best at. Frequently, I think I'm good at something. You look on the internet and it's just, wow, I suck. That's okay, right? It's inspiring. I find it inspiring looking at people that are better than me. It gives me something to look forward to try and achieve. Maybe I'll surpass them. Maybe I won't, but it's fun trying. And I'm glad we have people there. I mean, the world's best violinist, you know? Doesn't mean you can't enjoy their music. It's wonderful, beautiful music. But it doesn't mean it can be the only music, right? There are other violinists out there that make good music, and they have different music, right? Maybe they, there's different styles, right? You got Western and Celtic and folksy or classical Mozart. I mean, come on. we move forward by uplifting, allowing these people to be their best, to do their best. And that shouldn't make you jealous. It should inspire you. And like I said, dragging them down isn't going to help you. It's not going to make you any better. We're all going to be worse off for it. If the best violinist can't be the best violinist, where does that leave us? Right? You're going to be the best violinist? Come on. Doesn't mean you can't be good. Like I said. I don't know. It breaks my heart. It really does, people thinking that equality is a virtue. Physical equality, Obviously before law, before God, in spirit, all that stuff, of course, We should all be equal, right? You shouldn't get a get out of jail free card just because you're a rich person or you're well connected or you're the best pilot or athlete, right? If you commit a crime, go to jail. Actually, I think if you're one of those people, if you are the best quarterback or whatever, you're a public figure. I think you should be held to higher standards. I think the jail cell or the jail sentence for you should be longer because you're a public figure, right? You should be standards, right? You are a public figure. You're a role model. You should be held to higher standards. So balancing, right? And another thing that bothers me, the announcer, right? Hazel, she says, "That's all right," she said of the announcer. "He tried. That's the big thing. He tried to do the best he could with what God gave him. He should get a nice raise for trying so hard." How many people have you met like that? I've met quite a few recently, and it seems to be growing, the amount of people who think that you should get a raise or a medal just for trying. And don't get me wrong, trying has has merits, has a merit of its own, right? Trying is good. But you shouldn't elevate trying over succeeding or doing, right? Just because you try doesn't necessarily mean, like I said, dragging other people down. Trying is good. You can't elevate trying. Giving everybody participation trophies and stuff. It's not good. You're going to end up with people with inflated egos. Like I'm seeing, people think they're great. Think they're hot stuff, and they're really not. So, you got to stop that. So, anyway, yeah, I hope that sticks with you like it stuck with me, It was terrifying then when I read it, and it's still terrifying. You don't move forward by dragging other people down. You really don't. And I just want to hit that home, Everybody should be free. They should have the same opportunities. But not everybody is going to take those opportunities the same. They're not going to achieve the same results, right? If you have two people with the same opportunities, one might take it out of the park, and succeed. Another person, they might run with it and get to first, so to speak. And somebody might have the same opportunity and strike out, right? I mean, that's just how it goes. That's how it is. But we should be free to have the opportunity. And it doesn't mean you're less of a person, right? It just means that you should try something else. You don't have to be the best, like I said. Just be you. Be you, That's all right. It's okay to be you. You don't have to drag others down. So, but don't stop dreaming. Don't stop achieving, right? That's when it's a problem. If you're just sitting around complaining all day, that's a problem, right? Don't do that. Read a book. Go learn something. Or go get a hobby, a craft. Meet new people, right? The internet, this wonderful thing, once again, this wonderful thing that was invented by very smart, bright people, right? Could talk to people in different countries. That's so cool, get different perspectives on things. And I know I've learned a ton. I mean, my goodness, I've learned so much just by reading posts and talking to other people from different states or counties or countries. I mean, it's been wonderful. We're all better off for it. So, yeah. Don't let other people's success get you down, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, It'll be all right. Anyway, suppose I'll leave it there. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. I hope you have a wonderful week. Christmas is coming, so I think I'll make another video before then. But if I don't manage to get to it, or you don't catch it in the meantime, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. And I hope things go well for you. And I know, given the current circumstances, 2020, virus and unemployment, and there's a lot of sad things going on right now. And I just want you to know that my heart goes out to you, and I'll keep you in my thoughts and prayers. And if I can help you in any way, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll help you if I can, At the very least, I can be an ear to listen, I can try. We're all in this together, right? We gotta stick together, us little people. So, anyway, that's enough sappiness. Take care. Like I said, I hope you have a wonderful week. I hope good things for you, and I hope you'll tune in again. I hope you'll join me again. So, in the meantime, take care. Good night, everyone.